Hi everybody. So in this video we will see what are the different ways in which you can write a code, because you see JavaScript provide a lot of flexibility of declaring the functions, declaring the variables. JavaScript is a dynamic type language which you already know, and same rules can be applied to the AngularJS framework also, because it's also a JavaScript. Just have a different components like declaring a directives, controllers, services, factories, and routing and different kind of stuff, but it also provides the code flexibility of writing whatever, because you see this is a variable in which you have assigned this particular module. Now whatever you write like controller or something, you can do it in different ways. Like this is the controller name, you can put this demo controller. We have already covered few of this, so here in this way you can write a different controller or directive. If you want to create a factory here, then you just need to declare the factory name and the factory, and later you can define them in the function demo controller. So you are actually doing same thing, you are just actually putting this function here, which we are doing earlier. Similarly for the factory you have to do the same thing, function factory. So in the same way you can declare it, and if you want to inject something here, then down here, then you can inject using $inject, which will be helpful while modification of your code. Your code do not breaks if you write it like this, $scope or $http anything, and you need to write it in the same way, $http, and you can access it in a similar approach. So this is the one way of doing it. You already know the other different ways. You can declare the function here. If you have some kind of dependency, like if you are passing scope data, if you are passing $http data here, and then you are declaring the function, then this function is right now inside this, and this is the closing of this. So this is the another way of declaring a factory or services. Scope.anyMethod equal to function. So this is the another way of writing it. You can declare a factory in the same way. This is the demo factory, and whatever you are passing in the demo factory, you can specify here. So this is the same thing. You can define the directive, controller, or factory like this. So you will see a different approach. Consider approach like wherever we need to define a lot of controllers in a particular JS, then how we can do. You can create one function here like app component, app.com, which is a JSON object, and whatever you are defining next will be associated with this dot controllers. This is a nested JSON object you created. Similarly, you can create a controller, factory, filters. So these are the three objects I created so that I can have controllers in a different object, factory in a different object, and filters in a different object. And now I can create my first controller like this, dot app control. So this is the same way, like this is the controller definition, and I'm assigning it to the function. So this is similar. Passing scope here, and then this is my controller definition. Here I can do anything what I want with the scope. You can define anything with the scope dot method equal to function. So it's a method inside a controller. Right now it's not a controller, it's just a JSON object. We will add it when we use this module variable to set these controllers. So this is the one way of defining the method. You can do that using this variable also. We are going to see how this variable can also be used. This variable can also be used in the AngularJS, while we will discuss about the controller as syntax. So like say hello, you created this method, it's also similar kind of function, but it is using this variable. It's not a scope, so you need to assign this to this variable back to app controller. So this controller back to, we will assign it return what it is returning. It will return the $scope dot app control $scope dot app control equal to this. It means it's the same way which we are just using this in place of scope. So the Angular need to know what is this, what is the value of this. So we need to assign it to the scope dot app control. So this is a controller definition. Similarly, we have already created a directive, like you can create a directive also. And we can create a directive here, directive dot hello directive. We can put anything here, it's a directive name, and we'll assign it to the function which will return something to us. It is the same way of writing the directive, just only we are assigning this function. This is the same function which we were declaring earlier, so it should return something. It can return any kind of function which takes a different arguments like scope, element, attribute. And you can do any kind of operation here. This is the return statement. Or if you want to do much further, like if you want to declare other things also, then you can do a detailed description of this. You can restrict it to first to some element, and then you can define, put a comma here, then you can define a link function. It depends on you what all things you want to define here. This contains scope, element, and this is my function. If you want to define a controller, you can do that. If you want to define a transclude, now you are clear what transclude means. So these all things are defined in this directive. Now these are just a JSON object in which I assign these directives. I need to assign them to the Angular module. This is my Angular module rideshare, so I need to assign them back there. Rideshare dot directive dot controller. I need to put the same thing, this controller object, because this is representing all the group of controllers. So I have assigned this module. Now these controller object are registered with my module. Now I can access them. Just like for the directive, I can have component dot directive. So this is just another way of doing the things, nothing much. This is the same function whatever you are defining, like this is the same function. Like in the traditional approach, or generally what we were doing, we were just doing like earlier we are writing controller like this. This is the controller name, and here we have a function. So this is just a copy of this function which we are placing now here. Okay, so these are the different approach in which you can define different things. If you have a lot of directives, factories and services, if you want to assign them first to JSON object and then assign that to the module variable, then this is the best approach. Otherwise, I prefer this approach of declaring the things like the second approach which we discussed, where you need to inject everything individually. CNTR. This is the app controller, then controller name, and the same thing, and then you are declaring it in the function name, and you are injecting individually whatever you are going to pass here. So this approach I like because it helps in minifications and it is more readable and traditional approach of writing the code. So you can go with any of the approach. Thank you everyone.